I used to think working the night shift would be easy. The building was usually empty. There were no customers, no managers, and barely any noise. Most nights, I spent my time sitting at the front desk, watching the security cameras and walking around the building every couple of hours. It was boring, and honestly, I liked it that way. Until one night, I realized I wasn't alone. I started working nights at a small office building outside the city. The building had 3 floors, a basement, and a large parking lot behind it. Most of the employees left around 6 p.m. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. I was the only employee there overnight. My job wasn't complicated. I checked the doors, watched the cameras, and walked through the building every hour to make sure everything was locked. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. The building was old, so it made noises at night. Pipes rattled. The air conditioning turned on and off. Sometimes the lights flickered. I got used to it. One Friday night, I arrived around 9:50 p.m. It was raining heavily outside. The parking lot was almost completely empty. I walked inside, signed in, and started my shift. Around 10:30, I checked all 3 floors. Everything was normal. I locked the main entrance and returned to the security desk. For the next couple of hours, nothing happened. I watched the cameras, I checked my phone, I drank coffee. Then, at exactly 1:46 a.m., I noticed something on one of the security monitors. It was the camera facing the back entrance. The door had opened. I stared at the screen. The door slowly closed again. I immediately checked the other cameras. Nobody was walking through the hallway. I looked at the back entrance camera again. Nothing. I assumed the wind had pushed the door open. But the back entrance was supposed to be locked from the inside. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward it. When I reached the door, it was locked. I checked it twice. Everything looked normal. I went back to the desk. I tried not to think about it. About 20 minutes later, I heard something. A faint sound from upstairs. It sounded like footsteps. I looked at the cameras. Nothing. I waited. Then I heard it again. Step, pause, step. I turned up the volume on the security monitor. The footsteps stopped. I sat there for another minute. Then I heard a door close somewhere on the 2nd floor. I grabbed my flashlight. This time, I didn't feel comfortable going upstairs, but I had to check. I walked slowly through the 1st floor. The building was completely silent. I reached the stairs. Before I went up, I noticed something. One of the lights on the 2nd floor was on. I was sure it had been off during my earlier patrol. I stood at the bottom of the stairs for a few seconds, then I walked up. The light was coming from an office near the end of the hallway. I walked toward it. The door was slightly open. I pushed it open. The room was empty. There was a desk, a chair, a computer that was turned off. Nothing else. I checked the windows. They were locked. I checked the closet. Empty. I turned off the light and closed the door. Then I heard something behind me. A quiet sound, like someone taking a step. I turned around. The hallway was empty. I stood there for a few seconds. Then I walked back downstairs. I told myself it was nothing. Old buildings make strange noises. That was what I kept telling myself. At around 3 a.m., I was back at the security desk. I was watching the cameras when I noticed something strange. The camera showing the 2nd floor hallway had gone black. I tried switching to another camera. It worked. I switched back. Still black. I checked the camera in the office. It was working, only the hallway camera was down. I called my supervisor. He didn't answer. I left him a message and decided to check it myself. I took my flashlight and went upstairs. The hallway was completely dark. I looked at the camera. Nothing seemed broken. The small red light on it was still on. I reached up and touched the camera. It was warm. Then I noticed something on the floor, a muddy footprint. I looked down. There was another one, then another. They went from the stairs toward the end of the hallway. I froze. It had been raining outside. So maybe someone had walked inside earlier, but there was a problem. The footprints were fresh, and they weren't mine. I followed them. They stopped in front of the same office I'd checked earlier. The door was closed. I stood there listening. Nothing. I slowly opened it. The room was empty, but the window was open. I immediately stepped back. I knew that window had been locked. I looked outside. It was raining hard. There was no fire escape, no balcony. Nothing someone could stand on. I closed the window and locked it. Then I noticed something on the desk, a small black object. It looked like a phone. I picked it up. The screen was cracked. I had never seen it before. I took it downstairs and put it beside my computer. I decided I was done investigating. I just wanted the shift to end. At 12 a.m., I heard the front door unlock. I looked at the camera. The front entrance was empty. I stood up. I walked toward the lobby. The door handle was moving. Someone was trying to open the door from outside. I didn't move. The handle stopped. Then someone knocked. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. I looked through the glass. Nobody was there. I stepped closer. Nothing. Then I noticed something on the ground outside. A manila envelope. I didn't open the door. I called my supervisor again. This time, he answered. I told him someone was trying to get inside. There was a long silence. Then he asked me, which entrance. I told him. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he said, "Don't open that door." I asked him why. He said, "Just stay inside." I asked if I should call the police. He told me to wait. That answer made me even more nervous. I asked him if this had happened before. He didn't answer. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Check the cameras." I went back to the security desk. I checked the front entrance. Nothing. I checked the parking lot. Nothing. I checked the back entrance. Nothing. Then I checked the second floor hallway. The camera was working again, and that's when I saw someone. A person was standing at the end of the hallway. They were facing away from the camera, completely still. I stared at the screen. I couldn't understand how they had gotten inside. I had checked every entrance. Every door was locked. I called my supervisor. No answer. I watched the screen. The person didn't move. Then they slowly turned around. I couldn't see their face clearly, but they were looking directly toward the camera. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't going upstairs. I went into the small security office and locked the door. I called the police. While I waited, I kept watching the camera. The person was gone. Then the camera went black again. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps. Not from the cameras, from the hallway outside my door. Slow footsteps, step, pause, step. They stopped right outside the security office. I held my breath. The door handle moved once, then again. I was certain someone was trying to get inside. Then everything went quiet. About 10 minutes later, I heard police officers enter the building. They searched every floor. They checked the basement. They checked the roof. Nobody was there, but they found something. On the second floor, near the office with the open window, there were fresh muddy footprints, and they led to the stairwell. The officers followed them downstairs. The footprints ended at the basement door. The basement door was locked. When they opened it, they found an old mattress, empty food containers, bottled water, and several cigarette butts. Someone had been staying there. For how long, I don't know. The police couldn't find the person. I quit the job the following week. A few days later, my supervisor called me. He apologized. Then he told me something he hadn't mentioned that night. Apparently, another employee had reported seeing someone inside the building several months earlier. Management had never found anyone. They assumed it was a homeless person getting inside. But my supervisor admitted something else. The basement door had been locked for years. Someone had somehow gotten inside anyway. I never found out who that person was, but I still think about that night. Especially the security camera, because when I watched the footage one last time before leaving, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The person standing at the end of the hallway wasn't looking at the camera. They were looking directly at the security office, at me. And somehow, they already knew exactly where I was.